The Truth of the Ancient Black Egyptians and Modern Erasure.
Unveiling the faces behind the pyramids. Mom, if the Egyptians were Africans, why do they look like Europeans in my schoolbook? The question came from a child no older than 7. A simple, innocent query, but one that echoed centuries of distortion. Her mother paused, heart thudding. How do you explain to a child that history has been rewritten, not in ink, but in silence? This is a story not just about ancient Egypt. It is a story of lost identity, systemic erasure, deliberate misrepresentation, and the enduring spirit of truth that refuses to stay buried.
The River of Beginnings.
It began with the Nile. Long before Rome rose or Greece philosophized, a civilization blossomed along Africa's lifeline. The Nile cradled the very heart of what would become one of the world's most iconic and misunderstood cultures, ancient Egypt. To understand the Egyptians is to return to the soil, the rich, sun-baked banks of the Upper Nile. The land was dark and fertile, and so were the people. They were not pale-skinned monarchs draped in silk, but richly pigmented Africans whose features echoed those of their Nubian neighbors. The earliest dynasties, Narmer's unification of Upper and Lower Egypt, came from the south, near Nubia. These were people of melanin and strength, wisdom and resilience. They spoke with the cadence of the desert winds and buried their dead with rituals older than time itself. And yet, somewhere between the sands of Giza and the shelves of modern libraries, their faces were changed.
The Color of Kings.
Look closely at the tomb paintings in Luxor. The pharaohs are dark-skinned. Their queens wear braided wigs and golden ornaments. Their gods, Anubis, Osiris, and Horus, are depicted in hues of brown and black. Skin tone was not a matter of ambiguity, it was central to identity. Why, then, have museums across Europe paraded alabaster replicas with straight noses and light skin? Why does Hollywood continue to cast Egyptians with Anglo or Levantine features, draped in linens that carry no trace of the sun? The truth lies not in ignorance, but in intent. Whitewashing is not new. It began in the colonial era when European powers sought to disconnect Africa from its brilliance.
To colonize a continent, you must first devalue it.
And so, African genius was painted over. Egypt, in all her glory, was lifted from the continent and placed symbolically in the Middle East, a term invented to sanitize geography and confuse ancestry. A kingdom called Kush. To the south of Egypt lay Kush, a kingdom of black pharaohs, fierce warriors, and master builders. The 25th dynasty, known as the Nubian dynasty, ruled all of Egypt and brought a renaissance of culture and spiritual revival. These kings, Pi, Shabaka, Taharka, are etched in granite with unmistakable African features.
Broad noses.
Full lips. Coiled hair. Their skin, chiseled in dark stone, was a declaration of heritage. "We are the protectors of the ancient ways," declared Pi, a Kushite king, as he marched north to unify Egypt under black rule. Yet these dynasties are conveniently omitted from most textbooks. Why? Because they shatter the myth. The myth that black civilizations were primitive. The myth that brilliance is foreign to sub-Saharan soil. The myth that Africa gave nothing to the world but drums and dance. The scholars who knew.
Cheikh Anta Diop, Chancellor Williams, Ivan van Sertima.
These were not fringe theorists. They were scholars, linguists, Egyptologists, scientists. Diop, a Senegalese historian, proved through forensics and melanin tests that the ancient Egyptians were black Africans. He was met with resistance, not because he was wrong, but because he was inconvenient.
Williams chronicled the destruction of African civilization.
Sertima spoke of Africans who sailed to the Americas before Columbus. Their work was not speculative, it was evidence-based, peer-reviewed, and painfully sidelined. History is not always written by the victors, Diop once said. Sometimes, it is rewritten by those who feel threatened by the truth.
The Silent Conspiracy.
There was no grand announcement, no public decree.
Just silence.
Museums subtly changed labels.
Films altered faces.
Curriculum committees removed chapters. Slowly, the image of the African Egyptian faded into the shadows. Children grew up believing Cleopatra looked like Elizabeth Taylor. That Tutankhamun's tomb belonged to a Caucasian boy king. That pyramids were built by alien architects, rather than black engineers and laborers. The conspiracy wasn't loud. It didn't have to be. It worked through omission.
Derise of remembrance.
But truth, like water, finds its way. In communities across Africa and its diaspora, the stories are being retold. Elders speak of ancestors who walked with the gods.
Young artists paint pharaohs in shades of brown and bronze.
Filmmakers, independent and bold, recreate scenes long forgotten. Online, the hashtags grow. Hashtag Black Egypt, hashtag Our Ancestors, hashtag Rewrite History. A digital revolution that resists erasure. And in classrooms, brave teachers hand children books that show Ramses as he was. Black, powerful, African. Reconnecting the bloodline. To claim Egypt is to reclaim Africa. Not out of pride alone, but out of accuracy. You cannot understand the continent without understanding its crown. The architecture, astronomy, medicine, all began there.
Long before Hippocrates, there was Imhotep.
Long before Plato, there was Tahotep. Egypt was not an anomaly. It was part of a continuum, a golden thread of African excellence that stretched from Timbuktu to Zimbabwe. If we forget where we came from, a griot whispers, we won't know where we're going. The child who asked. Back to the child who asked why Egyptians don't look African in her schoolbook. Her mother knelt and said, because some people are afraid of your power.
The child blinked.
But I'm not. And that is where the healing begins. Final word. The tomb is opening. History is not a static tale. It is a living river.
And rivers remember.
The truth of the ancient black Egyptians is not a theory. It is a reality, long buried but never lost.
As more voices rise, de mirage fades.
What stands beneath is brown-skinned, broad-nosed, sun-kissed, and glorious. Let us not merely rewrite history.
Let Stati Uniti restore it.